We're being hit hard in the United States. China was hit hard. Italy was hit hard. More than 7,500 people have died in Italy. They're dealing with more than 80,000 cases. Right now, I want to turn to Italy. Joining us live from Rome right now is Katherine Wilson. We spoke to you a week ago. Katherine, just kind of give us the state of your life right now.
Well, I was hoping to give really a point of view from the other side of the curve, let's just say, from the recovery, because in the last couple of days, we did see a bit of slowing down of the infections. Today, however, unfortunately, it was the highest death rate since the beginning of the pandemic. So it was nearly 1,000 deaths, which was very hard to hear, because when you're going in the third week of the complete lockdown, you really do need to feel like all of these sacrifices are happening for a reason. I think, though, that the positive, the silver lining, is that the contagion does look like it's slowing down. So here, obviously we're not talking about stopping anything. We're just talking about slowing down so that the facilities and the hospitals can handle what's going on.
When you look back on it, we're dealing this right now in America about, do we listen to our government officials when it comes to a shelter in place, to a lockdown situation? And I know last week in California, Governor Newsom was very angry with people who flocked to beaches to enjoy the sunshine. Looking back on it, did Italians, because I'm curious, looking at your death toll is so large, did Italians not listen to the warnings? Were the warnings not there? Were they coming in late?
I have to say, it was exactly like in the United States. It's incredible to see. It's almost like I'm seeing exactly my life 10 days to 2 weeks ago. Because it was, to be fair, it was confusing, because there was a moment at which the government said, it's better to stay at home, but restaurants were still open, bars were still open. I have 2 teenagers, so they wanted to go out. So it was very hard to know, because some people were taking it very seriously and other people weren't. And so it was hard to know, but I think that now, when we're beginning to see the results of staying at home and seeing that curve start to plateau, I realized just how important it was in those days, when we didn't realize it, to take this thing so seriously. It's funny, I remember everything I did before the complete national lockdown, not just because it was the last time I went to a restaurant or the last time, but I think to myself, was that really all that necessary?
Yeah, interesting point there. You talk about being a mother. I know you say you have 2 teenagers. I'm a father, not teenagers, they're 7 and 9, but I feel, my wife and I, we look at different parents, and we're talking about good friends of ours. We give that look to each other like, do you want to meet? Can we meet you at the park? Can we not? And I feel like there's peer pressure among parents saying, oh, it's fine, it's not fine. I'm wondering, as a parent yourself, did you experience that? Because there's a lot of people here in the country who feel like, oh, I don't want to go out, and now they're being looked at differently among friends.
Yes, there was a lot of that here too, and there was judgment. There was the feeling of, oh, why are they being so strict, and why are these other people not being strict? And in that way, I think that in a way, the total lockdown was a bit of a relief, because you didn't have other parents that were making other choices, and with teenagers, you have your kids saying, hey, but so-and-so is letting me do this or letting me do that. So in that way, it was a relief. But I think that the really hard thing about this virus, and the thing that's so dangerous about it, is the fact that it's asymptomatic. And we, as parents, knew that this was not a virus that was extremely dangerous for kids. And so we thought, well, if they're feeling good and we're telling them to wash their hands, what can be so bad? We'll tell them to do some social distancing, but for us, social distancing was keeping, 1 meter or 2 apart, maybe not hugging each other. But now we're realizing all of these people that are dying now are because they were, it's awful to say, but infected by family members. I mean, they talk a lot about the older generation in Italy, and often these were people who, were just living in a house with teenagers or with kids or with, asymptomatic adults who unknowingly gave them this virus. And so now I realize, it's so important for this younger generation to realize that these small sacrifices can make such a difference. And maybe not, we won't see that difference right now, but you will in a couple of weeks.
Katherine, I want to ask you, and I want you to talk to parents here in America right now, because, you know, for some, they're only a week in, 2 weeks in. This could go up until May 1st, but a simple question, but be direct. I mean, how do you get through it? How do you do it at home, and what are you doing with your children and passing time?
Well, I think that, you know, thank God for online learning. Thank God for the internet. That helps a lot. And I think that in some way it's helping kids with gratitude. It's helping kids. The kids get it. I mean, they realize that it's what they have to do. So I think the hardest thing for a parent is when you feel like you're imposing something on your kids. But I think just like in any war where there's a general sense of sacrifice and there's a sense of solidarity, there's a sense of we're doing this all together because it is so serious, the kids get it. And, you know, it's not the end of the world to spend some time together and to try to find moments of humor, moments to, you know, make light of certain situations to get through it. And I think that the solidarity that's come out in Italy in these past weeks has just been so beautiful, because it's a country that everybody's complaining about the politics, everybody's complaining about how things are done and the efficiency. But this is really a moment where we realize everybody's doing all that they can, and kids get that too.
It's important to spend that extra, I mean, we have extra time together. I think it's bonding as a family, can make us even stronger. You know, I caught myself the other day, you know, we're trying to have as much structure as normal in our house, you know, continuing, hey, all right, we get up at the same time, like we're going to school, we're homeschooling, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I told, we have an Xbox at home, and usually they're not allowed to play as much during the school week. And I caught myself kind of being that dad, but then at the same time, I'm like, you know what? We're in unseen, you know, circumstances here that we've never experienced. You know, maybe I need to loosen up a little bit as a parent and say, all right, you can have some extra time during the school week, if you even call it a school week. You know, I'm wondering, have you been able to, do you recommend doing that? And maybe it's not video games, but whatever, the iPads, whatever, they're on their phones.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I find that it's so important for us as parents to let ourselves off the hook and to know that these are very specific, unique times. And it's funny, my son had to do an essay for school on what this period has meant to him. And, you know, he's an Italian teenage boy, and he's very much into sports and all the rest. And he loves playing PlayStation and all this kind of stuff. And I was just so flabbergasted, because in this essay, he said, I'm kind of sick of playing online games. I'm kind of sick of chatting with my friends. I'm kind of sick of Instagram. And he wrote all of these things that I thought, oh my gosh, if you'd told me a month ago that he would be sick of a screen, I would have said, you're out of your mind. You know, it was his dream to have unlimited screen time. But they're starting to appreciate how wonderful their normal life actually was.
Yeah. To our viewers across the country here, I want to say that, Katherine, you wrote an article called I'm an Italian mom under coronavirus lockdown. Here's what I wish I had done differently before things got bad. Let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe one or two things you would have done differently here.
Well, the first thing is, don't listen to what other people are saying or doing, and don't worry about what other parents might judge, because they need to stay at home. Kids need to stay at home. They can't go out. They just can't. Another thing is, don't listen to your kids when they say, but so-and-so says, but you know, you're being too strict, or you're being too this. Don't listen to it. Put earphones or something in. And again, like we said before, let yourselves off the hook, because it's not easy being a parent in these times, having to work, to cook, to, you know, clean, to do everything. It's, you know, a lot is being asked of us as well. So I think these things maybe the sooner they're done in the U.S., the better. Yeah.
I'm not a chef, but I'm thinking about becoming one, because we are cooking so much at home. Kind of a random question, but do you find yourself cooking different meals that maybe you never cooked before?
Yes, and the wonderful thing is there's so many recipes, especially here in Italy, that say, you know, let something soak for hours, or let something simmer all night, or, you know, these things that you thought once upon a time, oh, I'll never in a million years have time to do that. And now you can. And it's hilarious, because in the Italian supermarkets, we still have everything we need, because we're allowed to go about once a week to the supermarket. And the things that are running out are yeast, There are things that, to bake bread, all of the pre-made things are not being sold because people are going back to kind of a different era, which is not bad.
Yeah,
not
not bad at
bad.
all, no. The future era, being on our phones and all the news and all the information we are soaking in all the time, and I'm obviously involved in it. So do you find yourself putting the phone down more, not checking on the latest information on what's going on in Rome and around Italy, or even around the world for that matter? As the weeks go by, do you find yourself less looking at all that information?
Yes, I got to the point, actually, with the help of my kids, to the point where at 6 o'clock, there's the kind of head of the Civil Protection Agency of Italy that gives the official numbers. And so that 6 o'clock appointment is when we all sit down and listen and know the numbers. And beyond that, I've sort of made myself not look at anything else, because otherwise it really can become a bit of a spiral. And if you need to keep positive, and especially if you're a parent, I think that is important. And to look at the positive and to know that China did make it out of this, and the numbers are getting better, and what we're doing is starting to show results. And so, that's just the thing that we have to focus on.
I think all of us around the world, we evolve as a human species, and I think we're going to change as a result of this. Maybe it could be a little thing in your day-to-day life. It could be a big thing. When you think of Katherine Wilson pre-COVID-19 and Katherine Wilson post-COVID-19, how much different are you going to live your life, Katherine, you think, in the future?
I think it's going to be a really radical change. I think it's like a resetting of all of the priorities of my sense of time, even. I think I realize now how much I was a slave to schedules and planning as well. Having grown up in the US, I'm definitely a planner, and this period has taught me that you really have to live in the present. And again, as I said, about my kids, it's been a real lesson in gratitude, in realizing, okay, if we're all together and we're all healthy and we have food to eat, that's really all that matters.
It's true.
And so I think that's, in the end, it will make us all better people.
And you would say, to kind of put an end on it, but your number one recommendation to people here in the States is social distancing.
My number one recommendation is, don't assume that this virus is somewhere else. Don't assume you don't have it. Don't assume anything. Just do exactly what you're told to do. Stay at home, keep it simple, and don't listen to anybody else. Yeah.
You said you're from the state. Do you still have family in the States here?
I do. I have parents. My parents are in Washington, D.C., and they are over 70. So when this started happening, I called them immediately and I said, stay at home no matter what. And my sister is also in New York. And so it's almost like I've lived certain things that I hope the U.S. doesn't get to this point, but I fear it might. And worst case scenario, I said to them, if you say, well, I'm kind of a pain and a little bit too strict, then hallelujah that we've been a little bit too strict. Yeah. But for now, what you're doing now is going to make a difference in the future, not just for you, but for all of society.
Well, thank you for writing that article, Katherine, and thank you for joining us for this conversation. Stay safe and have a great weekend. Okay, Katherine Wilson there,
Thanks so much, you too. Thanks for having me.
Of course, living there in Rome, Italy.